Train, 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 train lover 16. The train, for its size, is the fastest vehicle on land. And the locomotives of Redcliff Loco Yard are the power behind the stations, industries and train lines that make up the well-renowned Redcliff and Guinea Bridge Railway. This is Redcliff Railway Tales. Recently, Robert had an accident because he didn't listen to anyone when they were telling him that he needed to get his brakes checked. But as a result of his accident, Robert made a great discovery, an old engine of the closed Redcliff Mountain Railway. Her name was Emma, and the railway had now fixed her up to help Brian with his shunting work. With the deadline for the Eric building closing fast, all the engines were working as hard as they could to get it finished. This meant that Emma was now busier than ever. She was stronger than Brian, and in fact, she was doing so much work that Brian had hardly anything to do. Brian really did not like the fact that Emma was stealing all of his work from him. One day, Emma brought some coaches for Alan to take on his rush hour passenger run. Thank you, Emma. That is so kind.
My pleasure, Alan. I love being helpful.
Brian looked at her with much jealousy. If she carried on like this, what would become of him then? Later on, the yard manager gave Brian a task. Brian, could you get David's wagons for him, please?
I shall see to that at once.
Brian moved slowly forward to couple up with the wagons.
I'll do it.
And before Brian could say anything else, Emma coupled up with the wagons and promptly took them straight up to the station for David to collect. Ah, brilliant. Thank you so much, Emma. That is very kind. It was at this point that Brian had had enough of everyone being so nice to Emma, and everyone forgetting about him. He needed to think of something so that everyone would realise that Emma wasn't as good as they thought she was. Then he got an idea. Brian got a wonderfully awful idea.
I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a very long train for Emma to take. She won't be strong enough to pull it, and then everyone will see that she's not great after all. Then everyone will respect me again.
The next day, Brian put his evil plan into action. He began shunting the wagons into a very long and heavy train. Soon it was ready, and Brian looked back to admire his devious work.
It's perfect. That stupid animal will be sipping her wheels and won't be able to pull this long train.
Just then, Emma came back into the yard to find Brian and the very long train.
My, that's a very long train. Who is gonna pull that lot?
You, of course.
Me? But I can't possibly pull all of that. I'm not very big like you. Can't Max just do it? He's the strongest. He would definitely be able to manage it.
Max is very busy with other things at the moment. Come on now, you're stronger than me. I'm sure you can do it, being the very helpful locomotive you are.
Well, alright. I'm sure that train will turn out to be as heavy as it looks.
Thank you, Emma. You're so kind and helpful.
Brian grinned evilly. His plan was working perfectly. Emma started off with her long and heavy train. Brian watched her leave, feeling very pleased with himself. Emma was only just able to pull the heavy train. She was doing her best. Soon she passed Jacob and began to climb the Becksgate flyover. Gosh, that train looks mighty heavy. Be careful with that, darling. Emma was struggling now, trying to pull the train up the flyover. She was using every last bit of electricity in her batteries to get up the hill. The wagons clanked and creaked, and the train continued up the gradient. The train was far too heavy, and it slowed right down to a stop. Emma's wheels spun and spun, but it was no use. The train just wouldn't get over the top. Then suddenly, the coupling broke, and Emma's wagons rolled back down the hill, faster and faster.
No, come back!
But of course, the wagons couldn't hear her, and they continued to speed back down the tracks towards the building. Back at the construction site, Peter was talking to the project manager.
So after Jacob's accident with that crude oil, he'd learned his lesson and was ready to fight his son.
That sounds like it was a very funny event, Peter. I've always wanted to know. Suddenly, everyone heard a distant noise from down the tracks. Peter, what on earth is that noise?
That sounds like... Runaway wagons! Everyone take cover! Runaway wagons approaching!
Everyone took cover and braced themselves. The train came hurtling round the bend, and it smashed into the tower. As the tower crashed to the ground, bricks and glass exploded everywhere. All the hard work was wasted. The entire building was a huge mess on the ground, and no one knew what to think of it. Just then, Brian came rushing into the disaster scene.
Oh my goodness, what on earth has happened here?
I think it's pretty obvious what happened, Brian. This was a setup, wasn't it?
Well, I did not want it to end like this at all, I swear.
But deep down, Brian knew that Emma was right. He felt awful and knew that this disaster was all his fault. Freddie soon arrived with Colin the maintenance crane to help clear up the mess. He also brought with him an angry-looking Mr. Eric. Brian, do you see what's happened here? This is such a catastrophe. Why did you shunt so many wagons for Emma? Brian knew exactly why he had done it, but he couldn't tell Mr. Eric. He felt too ashamed, so he said nothing. Brian, don't ignore me. Answer my question. Why did you shunt so many wagons for Emma? Still, Brian did not say a word. Mr. Eric was very cross. So, you're giving me the silent treatment, are you now, Brian? Honestly, this really is not like you at all. Mr. Eric walked off in a huff. Brian just stayed there where he was, thinking of the awful atrocity he had just committed. Later that evening, Mr. Eric called a meeting with all the engines at the loco yard. So you see, engines, now because of Brian's, and I'm sorry, but there's no nicer way to put this, selfish and disgusting actions, the Eric building will now no longer be able to be completed on time. And guess who has had to take the blame from the council for it? Not Brian, me. Yes, me. The council are saying that I run an incompetent railway and are thinking of withdrawing our contract to supply the building's raw materials. They are even considering revoking the building's name as the Eric Building and naming it after someone who is more worthy of the building being named after. All of this has been caused by your actions, Brian, and you are very lucky that I have decided not to inflict any consequences on you, because believe me, what you did today is worthy of you being confined to the loco yard for a whole month. Sir, may I just put in that we engines have come to the agreement to send Brian to Coventry. That means we shall not be speaking to him again anytime soon. To be quite honest with you, Sir Callum, I don't blame you. Brian has been nothing but a huge inconvenience for all of us today. Brian now felt even more horrible than ever. He knew that no one wanted him anymore. That night, when everyone else had gone to sleep, Brian slipped away quietly. However, Emmis noticed him leaving and followed him all the way to Guinea Bridge Junction station.
Brian, what are you doing?
Ugh, I'm running away from this railway, Emma. It's clear to me that nobody wants me here anymore.
What? Brian, of course we still want you here. You may have messed up today, but that doesn't mean you should run away.
Well, I'm running away anyway. You seem to manage just fine on your own, always beating me to it with getting everyone's trains ready.
But Brian, I was only trying to be helpful to you.
Well, Emma, I think you were being a little too helpful. I did try to tell Mr. Eric I didn't need any help, but he wouldn't listen to me. And now the Eric Building has been destroyed. Therefore, I'm running away from this railway and never, ever returning.
But Brian, where will you go?
Somewhere where I'm actually wanted. I've decided I'm going to run away to Coventry. I know it's only a metaphor for not speaking to anyone, but to be honest, I really can't think of anywhere else to go.
Brian, please don't run away. We'll all still want you here, despite what happened today.
I'm sorry, Emma. My mind is made up. I'm permanently leaving this railway, and there is nothing you can do to stop me, alright?
Oh, okay then, Brian. I guess this is goodbye forever then.
Yes, Emma, it is. Goodbye forever, Emma. Never see you again.
And with that, Brian headed off up the line that led away from the Redcliff and Guinea Bridge Railway and onto the national network.
I don't think Brian has made a very wise choice. I should probably inform Mr. Eric about this. I hope he'll still be around doing some late-night work at this hour.
Brian continued along the line in the pitch dark of night. It was cold and eerie. Brian began to feel slightly unsettled. He stopped for a bit to try and take in his surroundings.
I hope I reach Coventry soon. This darkness is starting to creep me out. Ugh! What's that? Oh, just an owl. Nothing to be afraid of here, so I'll just continue to Coventry.
As Brian headed on up towards Coventry, he kept stopping every now and then to check that he was safe. Soon he came to another bend, but he heard something behind him.
Huh? What's that? Whatever you are, or whoever you are, please don't hurt me. I'll shank you really hard. I will. Please, just leave me alone.
But then, who should show up from behind Brian? Emma, of course. And who should accompany her? None other than Mr. Eric. Hello, Brian. Thank goodness we found you. We really didn't mean to make you run away, despite what happened earlier.
Oh, thank you for coming to get me, sir. I now realise that this was not such a good idea after all. I'm sorry about the Eric Building, and I'm sorry I was horrible to you, Emma.
That's alright, Brian. But I'm sorry as well. I now realize that there is such a thing as being too helpful. Helping your friends too little can exhaust them, but helping them too much can make them feel unwanted and useless. You are neither of those things, Brian. That's why me and Mr. Eric want you to come home to Redcliff with us.
That's right, Brian, and you'll be pleased to know that on our way up here, I phoned the council and explained everything to them, about what happened with the Eric Building collapse, and about you running away. They now understand that it was not my fault after all, and they are not going to revoke the contract or the building's name after all, and they really feel for you, Brian. However, just because of that, I do not want you to get the idea that me and the council have excused your actions today. We both see and understand your side of the story, Brian, but it is important for you to see and understand our side of the story as well.
Oh yes, sir, I do see and understand it. I promise to never trick anyone and end up causing widespread harm like that ever again.
That is very good of you, Brian. I'm glad you've learned your lesson now. And now, I think it's time we all got back to Redcliff.
Couldn't agree more, sir. Let's all go home now.
And with that, Emma coupled up to Brian and they all set off back towards Redcliff. When they finally made it back, it was early morning, and the engines were waiting in the loco yard to greet them. Morning, you two. It looks like you both had an eventful night.
Oh, believe me, Robert, it was anything but uneventful for us.
That's right, Robert, we had quite a night, but we're home now.
Yes, indeed. Brian is very sorry for what happened yesterday and has learned his lesson. I would greatly appreciate it if you all forgave him.
Of course we will forgive him, sir. Where would this railway be now if it weren't for Brian?
All the engines honked and whistled in agreement. Everyone was happy that Brian was safe and that he and Emma were now both firm friends for life.